Shavua Tov Kulam. We are in Kuf Yud Bet, Amud Bet, in the Masechet Sanhedrin, as we're coming to an end to the Masechet. Next week we'll have the final Shir. This Shir, Rabbi Shimon Omer, we're up to the two dots on 102, 112b3. We're on the two dots in the middle of the page. You really have to look a little bit back to understand where we are coming from. So remember, we're in the Ir Hanidachat. We're in the city that did it with the Zara. Everyone has to be killed. Anyone who did any Rasha who did it with has to be killed by the sword, and all their property must be destroyed. Even the property of the tzaddikim who were living there have to be destroyed. Okay, so we already saw the stuff that belonged to Hashem, right? So if you go back to 112b1, there's a bright on the left column that says Tan Rabbanon Haba Kachim is bechemutu. If there are certain karbanos that belong to Hashem, so it doesn't belong to the person who's dying, or the person who lives in the Ir Nidachas. So therefore, the carbon, you don't kill it. You don't kill it. It's not his property. You don't destroy it. But you can't bring it up either because it's not der. It's not proper to bring up something from Ir Nidachas to the Mizbeach. So therefore, you'd let it die on its own. Kachim, but the Kabbayis Yipadu. Stuff that belong to the maintenance of the temple, you redeem it. You don't give the exact piece, but you redeem it in the money, and that can be used in the Mikdash. Then it said, Utrumot Yirkevu, and Truma you shall let rot. Ma'aser Sheni v'chesrei Kadosh Yignozu. Ma'aser Sheni and Svarim Kedoshim, you bury them. Rabbi Shimon Omer, this is where we're going to have to focus in on. Rabbi Shimon Omer says, Behemta. When it says Behemta, it means you're a behema, but not the behema that's a Bechor or Ma'aser. Not a behema that's a Bechor or Ma'aser, right? Most animals that the firstborn animal is considered a Bechor animal, and as such, it is given to the Kohen, and it's brought up as a carbon. If it gets a blemish, the Kohen can eat it regularly without bringing it as a carbon. Ma'aser is 3 times a year. You would take your animals that were born, put them through a pen, one by one by one. The first 9 is yours. The 10th one is Ma'aser. It has to be brought up as a carbon. Okay? So it excludes behemat bechor u'maaser. Shilala, when it says the booty, the values, the assets, the property of the city, prat chesed kodesh chesed maaser. It excludes chesed kodesh and chesed maaser. Okay, in the end of the day, the main focus here is that he says behemta, right? And this comes from a pasuk in Devarim that says haket haket yoshay ha'er ha'i lifi charev. Right, the verb Gimel Tezayin. Fine. Now we're back to 112b3, where we are holding with Rabbi Shimon Omer. Behemta velo behemat bechor maaser. So now the Gemara wants to know which bechor, which maaser. B'may askinon. What type of bechor maaser animal are we dealing with? Ilay between me. If you say they were completely kosher and they're ready to go up as a carbon, Shalal Shemayim hu, then it belongs to Hashem, and therefore it's not your Shalala, it's not yours, it belongs to Hashem, therefore it shouldn't be killed at all. So I don't need the word Behemta to teach me this. Elo Bali Mumin, but if you're going to say it's about Mum, if you're going to say the animal has a Mum, so then what? It's not Hashem's anymore. Shilalaninu, then it's your Shilala, and it should be destroyed. Why do we learn from Behemta to exclude a Bechor and Ma'aser? If it's Hashem's, if it's a Tamim, it's good to bring up to the carbon. It's not yours, it's Hashem, so of course it won't get destroyed. Okay. If it is a Ba'amum, then it's yours, then it shouldn't get destroyed. Where do you have middle ground to say that Behemta means to exclude them? So Amar Ravina. Ravina explains of Shimon, and he says, La'olam bevali mumin. Really, the case we're talking about is when it's a Ba'amum. Now you said it's your Shalala, it belongs to you. True, but not true. Mi shenachal b'toret behemta. Yatsu elo she'enachal b'toret behemta. Elo b'toret b'chor ma'aser. Shalal shemayim ninhu. Somehow it turns out that even in their Bali Mum, they still are not considered completely yours. They're considered somewhat Shalal shemayim, and therefore the behemta pasuk tells us to remove it out. Now why? So Ravina said, Mishinachal b'toris behemta, yotzu elu she'en nechel b'toris behemta. Okay. So the way Rashi understands this, Rashi says there's a Shem Levi. There's an extra name, a Shem Nosef. there's an extra name to this animal. No one's going around and saying this is Tony's animal. Everyone's going around and saying this is Tony's Bechor animal, right? That happened to be Ir Nidachas and has a mum. But the shame of it, the name of it, changes it. Since it goes around with the name, Hashem Nosev, an extra name, therefore, it's not considered his. So right? A regular animal just has a known extra name, and this one has an extra name. Now the Yad Ramah gives a different reason. The Yad Ramah's reason in this understanding is Mishan Achabator Behemta. This will be found in note 24 in the art scroll. In the second paragraph, he brings the Yad Ramah, and he writes, there's legal limitations that do not apply to other animals. For example, a blemished Bechor and Master animals may not be sold or slaughtered in the market, nor the meat may be weighed. You can't weigh the meat. They're legally distinct from the ordinary animals. They're not included in the category of behemta, it's animals, so it's excluded, and therefore you would not kill a Bechor Master animal of the Ir Hanidacha. So again, let us simply review what we just said. Okay, so Rav Shimon said behemta comes to exclude the Bechor Maser. The Gemara says, which case, if it's a tamim, then shalala already excludes it because it belongs to Hashem. If it's a balmum, it should belong to you, and it should be destroyed. So comes Ravina and says, I'll explain to you. We're talking about a balmum, but yet it still doesn't belong completely to you because it is different. Either because Rashi explains Ravina that it has an extra name, or the Yad Ramah because it has legal limitations of what you can do with it. So therefore, it's somewhat different, and therefore it would not get killed as the property of an Ir Hanidacha. Okay, so just for a good understanding, in 112b4 in the art scroll, in the bold, where it says the dispute according to Ravina, the dispute between Rav Shimon and the Tanakama in the original Braita that we saw concerns the status of a blemished Bechor and Maser, blemished Maser. According to the Tanakama, these are put to the Besor because of the property of the Nidachat. Whereas according to Rav Shimon, they are not killed because they do not conform to the strict definition of behemta. Although the Tanakhama does not explicitly speak of blemish offering, his position on the matter is inferred from Rav Shimon's response. Okay, I don't want to get into that next paragraph of Yochanan and Shlakish. You could if you would like, but that is the understanding up until this point. So Ravina explaining Rav Shimon that the Mechlaiket Rav Shimon and the Tanakhama is about a Bechor that's mum or a Meiser that's a mum, and whether you kill it or not. Is it the Shalala of the people or is it somewhat Hashem's? Either Rashi's position of Shem Nosef or the Yad Ramah's position that it has legal limitations of what you can do to it. Okay, now the Gemara says next, Upli Gad Shmuel, and this is different than the way Shmuel understands Rav Shimon. The Arma Hakol Karev Kol Nifte. Everything is offered, everything is redeemed. What does this mean? My Kamar. What is he saying? Hachi Kamar. This is the way Shmuel is explaining Rav Shimon. Hachi Kamar. Kol shekarev keshehutam, anything that you can bring when it's a carbon, when it's complete. The nifte keshu balmum, and you can redeem it when it's a balmum. Then mishalal imoet, then that belongs to Hashem, and that's excluded from the word shalala. Your possession has to be destroyed, and not Hashem's. So any animal that when full it could be brought up, and when it's blemished it has to be redeemed. That is Hashem's, and therefore it doesn't get destroyed. Okay. But anything you could bring when it's a tam, the einu nefte kishehu balmum, but you cannot redeem it when it's a balmum. When it gets blemished, you can't redeem it. We can't redeem it. There's no way to redeem it. So then what? Then they're considered your property. And the only way to exclude it is behema nafka. It's to learn from the word behemta that tells you to exclude it. Okay? So Shmuel is not looking at a balmum. He's not looking at an animal that's a balmum. Okay? He's looking at the regular, full, tamim Tamim, Bechor, and Maser. And he says, what is the status of this? Is it Shalal Hashem or is it Shalal of the person? Okay? So he says, any animal that when it's full belongs to Hashem, you can bring it up to the carbon, to the Mizbeach, and when it's blemished, you have to be toilet. That's really Hashem's. And those don't get killed. But anything that is Tamim you can bring up, but it cannot be pointed, then guess what? It's not really considered Hashem, and it's considered the city's booty even while they're still holy. Okay? So as such, let's take a look at the bold in 112b4 on the right column in the notes. The dispute according to Shmuel. Both the Tanakama and Rav Shimon agree that blemished, the Choramaiser offerings are destroyed, along with the city's other animals. The dispute between them concerns unblemished animals and the status of Kadashim Kalim offerings. The Tanakama holds Kadashim Kalim offerings are considered the property of their owners, and they are therefore killed by the sword, as animals of the Erinidachas. Rav Shimon rules that Kadashim Kalim offerings are considered the property of heaven, and they are not destroyed. Bechor and Maser offerings would not be excluded on the basis because the fact that they can revert to the owner's use without redemption renders the property even when they are still unblemished. Nevertheless, they're separately excluded from destruction by the word of behemta. Okay, so take a look at the next page, and on the bottom there's a nice, beautiful diagram. Okay, so let's take a look at the first. You have here Ravina, according to Rish Lakish. We're not going to get into that. We'll just look at the top one. And then we have Shmuel in Rish Lakish. Okay? So here we go. Kachim Tamimin, unblemished offerings. According to Rav Yochanan, in Ravina, in Rav Yochanan, property of heaven left to die indirectly. Okay? Rav Shimon will hold the same thing. Where are they arguing? About it Bechor Maaser when they're a Balmum. According to the Tanakama, they killed by the sword. According to Rav Shimon in Ravina, Balmum Bechor Maaser is excluded by the word Behemta, and it's not killed. Now, according to Shmuel, take a look at the bottom one. Balmum, right, in the far right column. If it's a Balmum, the Tanakama and Rosh Shimon would agree it's killed by the sword. Where are they arguing? They're arguing they're complete. According to the Tanakama, Bechor and Maser, property and Nachas, are killed by the sword. According to Rav Shimon, Bechor and Maser, property and Nachas, but not killed, even though the property and Nachas are not killed because of this extra word, Behemta. So it comes out as follows. What are you using the word Behemta for? Rav Shimon said, Behemta excludes the Bechor and Maaser. What are we using this to exclude? Which case is it? According to Ravina, it's a case of a Balmum, Bechor and Maaser. Okay? As for a non-blemished, you let it die indirectly. You don't kill it by the sword. Okay? That's simple enough. If it's blemished, then it's a machloket. According to the Tanakama, you will. According to Rav Shimon, Behemta is that case of mum, and that's what excludes it and lets it survive. According to Shmuel, we're not talking about Bali Mum. Bali Mum, everyone agrees you let it die. Everyone agrees you kill it, not just let it die. You kill by the sword. When is there Rav Shimon? What is he arguing with the Tanakama? Talking about an unblemished. So a Tamim. Okay? According to Rav Shimon and the Tanakama, it really belongs to Yeridachas. The Tanakama says kill it. But Rav Shimon says the word Behemta tells us it's not killed. Rather, you exclude it because of the word Behemta. Okay, so that is that Gemara in a nutshell. A little bit more complicated, but it's really what are we using the word Behemta for? Ravina sees it in the case of the Balmum, where Shmuel sees it in the case of not a Balmum, and then the machloket that ensues based on that. Okay, fine. Now, the next Gemara on 112b5, it says in the Mishnah, Truma Yirkevu, you should let the Truma rot. So Truma that was in the Eir Nidachat, you let it rot. So whose Truma is this? Meaning, which stage of the Truma process is this? Is this still in the Israelites' hand, or is this already in the Kohen's hand? So this that was taught that you should let the truma rot is only if it's still by the Israelite of a truma b'yad Kohen. But if it already came to the Kohen, since it's his money now, so it's his property. Tisaref, it should be burned along with all the property of the Aaron Idachat. Mata Rav Yosef said, can this really be? Because your next case in the Mishnah says, Meiser Sheni, Mechitve Kodesh, Yugonzu. When it comes to Meiser Sheni and holy books, you bury them. 1 second. V'ha Meiser Sheni b'yad Yisrael kitrum yad kohen dami. The Meiser Sheni that's in the hand of the Jew, right, the Israelite, that's like Truma in the hand of the Kohen. They both have Kedusha. The Meiser Sheni in the hand of the Jew, he's eating it in Jerusalem, it has Kedusha, right? It has Kedusha. As such, if it has Kedusha, that's similar to the Truma in the hand of the Kohen that has Kedusha. So if you're telling me that by the Meiser Sheni you should bury it, then by the Truma you should let it rot. Why are we saying only if it's in the hand of the Israelite you let it rot, but in the hand of the Kohen you burn it? The Katanin Yingozu, and it says you should bury it. So therefore by the Kohen you should let it rot, not burn it. Gemara changes. Ela itmar. If something was said, itmar, this is how it was said. Amram Chizda, Loshanu Ela Truma b'yad Kohen. They only taught it when the truma is in the yad of the kohen. If the truma, the kohen has it, that's when you let it rot. Of a truma b'yad Yisrael. If the truma was in the yad of the Jew, of the non-kohen, tinatein lekohen shebeir acheret. He should give it to a kohen in another city. Okay, because it was Hashem's this whole time. It wasn't the property of a kohen's yet. So therefore, you give it to a kohen from another city. Why dafka? Another city. So perhaps if you give it to the Kohen of that city, now it becomes his property. Now it'll have to be destroyed, and you don't want that to happen, right? You want to consider his property while it's inside in the city, right? Let it rot or something like that. Some say, what do you mean? It's already after the Shem Aaron Idachat, so you cannot become an Aaron Idachat property now. It's already happened already, and by that time it was still Hashem's. So some say you don't want it to get mixed up. You gave him an apple, and you put it with his other apple. One apple's supposed to get burned, one apple is not supposed to be burned. And you get all confused. Therefore, you shouldn't do it that way, and therefore you should give it to a kohen in another city. Okay, so comes out from here. Which trumot give kivu? Which trumot you let it rot? That is the one that's in the yad of the kohen already. If it was still in the hand of the Jew, you would give it to another kohen in a different city. Tanan hatam. We learned there. Isa. The ma'aser sheni petuda min achal. You have dough of Meiser Sheni, it's potter from challah. You don't have to give challah to it. David Rabbi Meir, these are the words of Rabbi Meir. The Chachamim say, no, you have to give challah. Rav Chizda explains the machloket. Meiser Sheni Yerushalayim. This machloket is when it's in Jerusalem. The Rabbi Meir says, Rabbi Meir says, Meiser Sheni really belongs to Hashem. Hashem allows you to eat it, but it's still Hashem's. So therefore, if it's Hashem, it's not arisotechem. It's not your dough. You only have to give challah from your dough. This is not your dough. This belongs to Hashem. Hashem is letting you eat it. Okay? The Rabbanan Sarvi, the rabbis say, Mammon hedger too. No, it is your money. It is your property. Therefore, it's arisotechem. It is yours. In Jerusalem, it belongs to you. Because now you can eat it. Therefore, you do have to give challah. Aval b'gvulin. But if you're outside Yerushalayim, everyone agrees that it belongs to Hashem. It's Mammon Gavoa. And therefore, if you made a dough, you wouldn't have to give challah. And even the Ma'aser Sheni dough is later redeemed, right? You paid it, it's still exempt from requirement, from challah requirement. For whatever is not subject to requirement at the time it was made into dough, remains exempt. Okay? That's in note 37, second paragraph on the top of the right column, a couple of lines to the end of that first paragraph. Okay? Fine. So Motiv Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef has a question on this. So you're telling me that Meiser Sheni that's outside of Jerusalem is considered Mammon Gavoy belonging to Hashem? Matar Rav Yosef, Meiser Sheni v'chitvei kodesh in Gozu. You bury it. B'may askinon. What are we dealing with? Why are you telling me to bury it? If it belongs to Hashem, I shouldn't have to bury it because it's God's. It's not ours. If you say it's already in Jerusalem, might have Aaron Dachat, then who cares if it becomes Aaron Dachat? Meaning, Jerusalem can never become Aaron Dachat. So it cannot be that while I'm in Jerusalem, Jerusalem became Aaron Dachat. Cannot be that. Rather, it's another city that became an Dachat. Vashku only Gava. That they brought it into Jerusalem. Hi, Kilatu Hitot. Interestingly, halakha is then once you bring the Ma'aser Sheni into Jerusalem, the walls give it kedusha, and they take hold of it. So, if I left my city, it was not an Eri Dachat. I get to Jerusalem, the walls of Jerusalem now put kedusha and hold on the Ma'aser Sheni. So even if my city where I came from became Eri Dachat, that food would still be fine. So what are we talking about? Elalav Gvulin. We're talking about where Ma'aser Sheni is still in the Gvulin. And it says, Yignazu, you should hide it away. Which would mean it's private property. And Rav Chizda said that outside of Yerushalayim, Ma'aser Sheni is considered Mammon Gavoa. So the Gemara says, no, the case we're dealing with is La'olam De'acheres Vaskul Legava. This case, are we saying to bury it, talking about a case where Ma'aser Sheni came to Jerusalem, you're right, it cannot become any problem now, cannot become any dacha, but it became tamei, therefore we say hide it. The lifrake, let it be redeemed, let it be pointed. I'm Rabbi Lezer. Where we know if Ma'aser Sheni became tamei, we can even point it, we can redeem it even in Jerusalem. So there's a teaching, there's a drush that Ma'aser Sheni that become tamei can redeem even Jerusalem. So why would you say to bury it? No. I redeemed it, and I bought food with it. Now the food became tamei. That's where I'm saying to bury it, because by likuach, maybe you can't redeem it. Or says, well, if okay, redeem it. You bought food and became tamei. Ma'aser Sheni money that became tamei, the food that you bought became tamei. You should redeem it. Marsa Rabbi Yehuda, the Amma Yikaver. Our Mishnah follows Rabbi Yehuda that says to bury it. Gemara says, whoa, stop it. Ihachi, my ear, Dachat. If it becomes tamei, and it's all because it got tamei, and you can't redeem it, what does it do with Dachat? Why is this Mishnah teaching by Dachat? Oh, bury it. It's the case where it got tamei. That's not the case. We're talking about Dachat. It has to be some shayches where it's to do with Dachat. So I feel the Alanami. Teach this case about burying him when it's tamei by generally, not what it has to do with Eri Dachat. So rather, this was the case. We're dealing with Ma'aser Sheni that's tar, and it belonged to someone who was outside the city of Jerusalem. He came into Jerusalem. So he came in when the walls were up of Jerusalem. Okay, so the kedusha came onto the Ma'aser Sheni. And even if the Aaron Dachas became, nothing would happen to it because it's already in the walls. But then and now he came in, the walls were there, but then the walls fell. And then his city became a Aaron Dacha. So the hold of Ma'aser Sheni is no longer there because the walls aren't there. You have to eat within the walls, that's the oraita. But the law of wall and taking hold of Ma'aser Sheni is only rabbinic. When there's mechitza. When the walls of Jerusalem are not standing, they did not decree this. Note number 8. Thus, our mission teaches that where Ma'aser Sheni of Eri Dachat was brought to Jerusalem, the walls were still standing, and then the walls collapsed, the Ma'aser Sheni must be hidden away. Since the Ma'aser Sheni entered Jerusalem while its walls yet stood, it became permissible for the owner to eat, and thus it became his property, following the Chachamim. Since the walls are no longer standing, when the city becomes Eri Dachat, they do not protect the Ma'aser Sheni from the fate of the Eri Dachat. The Ma'aser Sheni is therefore forbidden. Nevertheless, we do not burn the Ma'aser Sheni out of deference to its holiness. We must therefore hide it away. Okay. However, Ma'aser Sheni that had not yet been brought to Jerusalem, we consider the property of the Most High, as a chizuk stated, and therefore remain permissible for consumption. So Ma'aser Sheni that not yet come to Jerusalem is not yours. It's Mammon Gavoy, like Rav Chizda taught, and therefore would not need to be buried, and you can still eat it. The Ma'aser Sheni that we said that you have to bury it is when it's brought to Jerusalem, and then there's no walls there, and then your city became Nidachad. Since it's there, like the Chamim say, while it's in Jerusalem, it's mama, it's your money, have your money, therefore you Chayiv and Chala. And now that it fell, and your city became Nidachad, so you can no longer use it because it's yours now. It's not Mama Gavaya, it's your Shalala, and therefore you have no choice but to bury it. Fine, that's the case of burying Ma'aser Sheni. We'll say one more piece, and then we'll B'ezrat Hashem call it a day. Kitvei HaKodesh Yugnozu. Yugonzu. The Svarim you have to bury. The Gemara says, "My teaching look Rabbi Eliezer. Our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Eliezer. The Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Kol Eish Yeshu Afilu Mezuzah Achat. It's stated that has even one mezuzah on it. Elon Aset Erin Achat. It's not made in Erin Achat. Shneimar. Sarafta ve'esh et ha'erim ve'et kol she'olah kalil. Eich dika mezuzah v'yavshar. You can't do it. Tichtiv lo tasu ken Hashem Elokeichem. You cannot destroy Hashem's name. So therefore, if it has a mezuzah, you cannot bury. You cannot destroy it. And therefore, it doesn't become an Eridach. Obviously, we don't go with this Mishnah of Rabbi Eliezer. Our Mishnah doesn't go with Rabbi Eliezer, but that is Rabbi Eliezer's teaching that even if the city has one mezuzah, it cannot become an Ir Hanidachad. In that case, never any city in Eretz Yisrael would ever become an Ir Hanidachad, which is a machloka did it ever happen or not. We already saw that. About burying Yugonzu is very true. So anything that has Hashem's name in it, one of Hashem's seven names, has to be buried. You cannot destroy it. The only way to get rid of it is by burying it. But we are noheg to bury anything, even if it has a regular pasuk in the Torah, it doesn't have Hashem's name in it. We still bury it. In fact, even Megillus Esther doesn't have Hashem's name in it at all. We would also bury it. And we know there's a famous Cairo Geniza where they found over 300,000 fragments of sacred text in there, and Siddurim and stuff like that. So our minhag is what we call shemus, right? To put it into shemot and put it into shemus and to do Geniza. That is how we conduct ourselves with Sifrei Kedusha that is no longer used. Okay, so B'ezrat Hashem, next week we should be able to finish off the Masechet. Tודה raba lekulam.